maybe it's a pipe dream, but I want people to understand blockchain at least enough that they'll be prepared when it completely wipes out our understanding of the internet.
The content presented on this podcast does not in any way represent investment advice. The information is provided for educational and entertainment purposes. Crypto assets are considered risky investments. You should always do your own research before investing. The opinions expressed here do not represent those of CoinDesk's editorial staff.
TJ Miller needs absolutely no introduction.
Jen with two N's doesn't either. I've been watching your show for quite a while. I am such a crypto guy, and I'm not like meme coins, but I'm so fascinated by the space. So I've watched you many. I've done a Jen rabbit hole where I just put you on and watch, and it's next, and a lot of it is months past. It doesn't even relate to the current crypto market, but I'll just sort of watch and then fall asleep. Yeah, usually.
So what's your favorite interview?
Oh my God, how could I even choose? But I like it when you interview the big ones,
Okay.
When you go down a rabbit hole, it becomes a blur.
It does. It's like 20, background 30, noise.
40. It's like, but I love how the other thing that I really love, because I was watching today, is I love sometimes you'll sneak in like, well, what do you think of the economy right now? Like, what's going on? Are we in a recession? And then who you're interviewing goes, well, I'm not into macroeconomics. And you're kind of like, hey, yeah, but still, what do you think? And I like how you're always kind of getting a little bit more from all of your guests. It's nice.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And that's not financial advice.
Everybody has to say, what do you think of the economy right now?
I cannot offer any financial advice.
No financial advice. It's true.
Wendy's now has a deal that is $9 in New York City for a combo meal. And what is it? PF Chang said lunch special, $17.95. And I think, and we should talk about ordinals, of course, but I think I have two theories. One is that around mid-July, everyone in America, all in one moment, said, I thought I would have more money than I do right now. And I just think that hits, for some reason, like a shock wave. I think all of America was like, wait a second. Like a few months ago, I thought for sure, I was certain that I would have more money than I do now. Something seems off. And then now it's much more visible, I think, and we're going to see August be more visible. And then my other theory is that right now, everyone is, they see the price of eggs, the price of milk, and I live in New York City. And so sometimes all of us are the last to kind of go, wait a second. But I just think everyone now has settled into the idea that, okay, inflation is real in the sense that everything's going to cost more, and we all have to adjust the way we look at our salary, or in my case, the pittance that I get paid when I work. And I think it's really interesting, because the other thing I think people are realizing is like, maybe I should work a little bit more. And that's what a recession looks like. It's, I should spend a little bit less, but maybe I have to work more. And that's a tough thing to work out, especially for Americans who are advertised at. I don't think we see advertisements. I think we are advertised at, because we're so good at capitalism.
Well, you're working more, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, actually, no, I'm working more.
I feel like you're working a lot more. You're out at the Bitcoin conference. You launched your latest NFT project on ordinals. I feel like you're doing more.
This is what makes a great host. You just did a segue into what we were supposed to talk about from when I was off into my ADHD land. That's why I like you. That's why everybody considers you the real deal with two N's.
Well, I love that. You're going to have to help me launch an NFT collection for all of my fans. I suspect that you may be probably the only one, but I would love to have you in my community if you're going to if you are willing to help me.
I am more than willing to help you.
All right.
That space I thought was really interesting to me after I don't know sort of what you hold and hodl, but I am not a Bitcoin maxi, but nearly. So I hold Bitcoin and I hold Ethereum. Now on the Ethereum chain, NFTs became this thing that suddenly exploded and was so interesting. And it was just new. It suddenly was, cryptocurrency went from, or blockchain went from kind of an investment opportunity for artists or entertainers. When NFTs sort of arose, we all go, well, wait a second. If you're really forward thinking, you could make a movie, is what Kevin Smith did, but you could make your own art project. You could make, this was far before I even thought of doing an actual comedy special, but you could put video or things that you wanted. And I'm starting early in ordinals. So right now it's just images. But my first NFTs, which I did in 2020, were based on my stand-up, but it was like an animated slot machine with several different movies that I had done. And then I did another one, which was a Rubik's Cube that slowly solved itself and became the punchline to one of my stand-up specials. And so those two things I thought were an intersection between what was being done with NFTs in the space at the time, and then me as a comedian, because I was the first comedian to mint NFTs. Nobody else kind of was even thinking about that. And I have a story from the NFT special that I just
I
filmed.
wanted to ask you about that, because I'm curious about the comedians who you talk to, the comedians who you see every night when you're performing. When you tell them about your NFT projects, what's the reception like? Like, are they interested? Do they think it's kind of useless? Like, do they get it?
Now, I love this question. I mean, it's a double-end gin, and we knew it from the start. I mean, this is me. This is what I have fun. I like to. I'll take it to. So yeah, and I'd love to talk about the ordinals because of the Bitcoin space and because they're available right now. But I just completed the first stand-up comedy special as an NFT. And sometimes when I say it was the first to do this, it was the first, it feels like, oh, I'm trying to brag that, but it's more confusing to me that people haven't explored this space. They don't know what's going on. So I shot a stand-up comedy special. I think it's running about 20 minutes long. We're in the final phase of editing, and that will be minted as an NFT. And then we'll figure out where it's going to go. Nifty Gateway is kind of transitioning and figuring out what they're going to do, but they minted my first NFTs. I have a little bit of loyalty to them and the Winklevi. But I finished the special and I was done with it. And afterwards, I was talking to a couple comedians, really comedians of note, like big comedians in the New York scene and nationally. And these guys are doing theaters and stuff. And so I thought, oh, maybe they'll be interested in doing one, right? So I said to them, yeah, it's going to be an NFT. There are about 3 of these guys there, and they go, so you don't put it on YouTube? And I go, no, it's an asset. So people buy it and it's theirs and then they own it. And they go, well, what prevents them from putting it on YouTube? And I said, well, it would devalue their asset. The scarcity is the main thing that is, important about it or valuable about it, which we'll talk about how ordinals level up on that because that's what Bitcoin is times 10. And they said, so nobody's going to put it on YouTube, you don't think? I go, I mean, I'm not sure of that, but no. And irregardless, the people that own the NFT of the special, that's theirs, right? And then anybody else that sees it is just seeing a copy of the NFT. And then you just look in their eyes and you see their mind just melt into their throat. Because what is also ironic about this is my closing joke in the special is about NFTs and trying to explain NFTs to like your parents or somebody outside of the space. And it's just so funny because they cannot understand it. And my joke is about me explaining it to my father, who kind of doesn't get it, and then suddenly still doesn't get it, and then kind of flips it
I
back
was
around.
hoping for
And
some glimmer there at the
I
end
know,
of
I
that
know. And
story.
we all want, this is what I love about the crypto space, the blockchain space. We all want people to understand it. None of us who are fighting the good fight, none of us are going, well, idiot, you don't understand. So you'll never get it. And you're not allowed in our club. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying, especially in Bitcoin, but also on the ETH chain, we're trying to say, listen, this is the future. Okay. There's no denying it. It is currently happening and it's happening very quickly. We'd like to explain it to you, and we think that you should buy Bitcoin or understand ETH or whatever. And let's start there. And it's just so complicated. And my other theory, just really quickly, is blockchain itself and Bitcoin takes about 50 hours of research, 50, to really understand it. And it's very difficult to get people to study once they're out of school. They're fatigued by it. What do you think of
Well,
that? Do you think that's
I
right?
I think it is hard to get people to study, but I also think that maybe people don't need to know how things work. If they can get something from it or they can understand the value, maybe they don't need to study the actual thing.
I think that's right. And I understand what you're saying completely. But, and I feel okay trashing them. But then they're in, then they're in meme coin world. They're going to get Doja or Pepe because they heard that that's going to make a bunch of money. Whereas someone like us, I think, is going to say, what is going on with the Solana blockchain? People
Okay,
are talking about it.
I
Proof of
got you
history
there.
seems different than proof of stake or proof of work. So maybe it's a pipe dream, but I want people to understand blockchain at least enough that they'll be prepared when it completely wipes out our understanding of the internet, and
Yeah.
now
So
everybody has to use it.
I think I agree with you. If it comes to an investment, you should understand what's going on. If you're going to invest, get a meme coin or something. But I think more if we're talking about like NFTs and the way that you've launched them as, entrance into a community, a collectible, ownership of this asset, of this creator you love. People who are entering that way don't need to understand the fundamentals to still get the value.
You're right, but you're absolutely right, because people that collect Pop Funko dolls don't necessarily know how they're made or where they're made or what plastic is used or any of that. But if you're going to buy an NFT, you should understand what NFT stands for, kind of.
Yeah,
And to understand
I'm
a
with you there.
non-fungible token, then you've kind of got to understand the blockchain. And to understand something that's fungible, then you kind of have to understand fiat. And so it's that rabbit hole that all of us have gone
Mhm.
down. But I agree with you, and I won't talk about it anymore because I'm afraid of Victor and you.
Yeah, everyone should have a little bit of fear of Victor. That's how the show looks and sounds so good. Now, tell me, TJ, we talked a little bit about the comedians in your network. The NFTs are really for your community, people who love the content that you create. How do you go about that education and getting them to really understand what's going on here and what they're buying into?
Well, I think right now it's very difficult for me to say to my fans at large, you should check out my NFT, because they then say, well, where? And in this case, with my ordinals, it's tj.cred, Kred, because Cred is the one that minted these ordinals. But I'm mostly sort of playing to not an audience, but maybe, yeah, an audience who are buying these things that already know about all this. So it's still a very niche group of people that the Venn diagram intersects between the ordinal, me, and people who understand and trade ordinals. So that I think is kind of interesting. And I'm sort of understanding what is the appetite and the market for ordinals right now that intersects with me,
Mhm.
and also what is the current market stance. So when I was selling my NFT, we were in just a white hot bull market, and NFTs were really something that was of interest. People were buying and selling. They were thinking you can make money off of it. What I was really happy about is people were, in NFTs, there's something that isn't the case in ordinals, because NFTs can be associated with a smart contract. So then every time they're sold, the creator gets a residual. That's what we call in Hollywood, but it would be sort of a kickback of 10% of the sale goes to the original creator. And I thought, well, this is fantastic, because residuals have all but disappeared in Hollywood. So this would be a great way, once people start making things, artists, all kinds of people, they they can get a residual. But then what I found out is if people really like the asset, then they're going to keep the NFT. They're going to keep it as part of their, collection. And so that was an interesting thing too, where if you make something great, people won't necessarily want to trade it. If that's the market of, it's like baseball cards, And then if you make a movie or a comedy special and it's an NFT, then when somebody buys it, if they love the comedy special, then they're going to keep it. And then maybe if they think, okay, I've seen this a couple times, then maybe they'll sell it. But if it's an ordinal, then there won't be that sort of return. And so it's still a very new space. I just think we're people like myself, which there really aren't be any others of note. You're kind of figuring the space out along as you go. You're just saying, what is this thing? What am I? Feels like the Lumiere brothers when film started becoming a thing, and people would go to a Nickelodeon, pay a nickel, and say, like, what will people want to see? Is it a train crashing? Is it a horse galloping? That was how new film was and how they were trying to figure out the audience.
Okay, so it sounds like you consider yourself a bit of a pioneer in the NFT space and the creating communities using the technology. I have
You
to
said
ask
it,
you,
I didn't.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think so. I think anyone who is experimenting in the space the way you are is really pioneering something that maybe all of us don't know what it's going to look like in the future, but I think that it will be embedded into community somehow, some way. But I have to ask you, I know we only have a few minutes left. I need to ask you about Fortune because we spoke about it so much on this show when it was announced. It incorporates NFTs into the creative process in a different way that we're talking about now. You, of course, star in the show. What progress has been made there? When is it coming to life? How do we get to watch the show and participate?
Well, like many sort of startups, because I feel like sometimes everything is a startup. Do you ever feel like that?
I
Everything
really
everybody
do.
is talking about, right? Kind
I
of.
really do.
Yeah. Every one of your friends in the tech world, everybody has a startup. They're part of a startup. They're a component of a startup. And like a lot of startups, Fortune and Toonstar, which is producing it, kind of feels like a startup that stalled out a little bit. So they're looking for their Series C, probably is how you would say it. And yeah, we're just waiting for that to happen. And I think it'll come because it's going to be great. Before we get out of this, because I just want to talk about this, is these ordinals that were minted by Cred and that you can get on tjmiller.cred are 3 of my tour posters, my most popular tour posters. And they're it's collectibles. It's a single image because there's not a lot of room on Bitcoin to inscribe, and so you also have to pay to inscribe, whereas minting can be something that people do for a percentage of it. But ordinals is a completely new space. Almost no one is inscribing them with anything but an image. And so this was my first time saying, okay, I'm a comedian, I'm a Bitcoiner. What is the appetite or interest for ordinals? And, do you want to collect them? You should, I think, as the first ordinals by a comedian. And this space is very different from NFTs, but is exciting because it's an NFT for Bitcoin maxis or Bitcoiners or people that want to understand that space and see some sort of entertainment or art come into the space. And I think it's really cool because I think what it's doing is Bitcoin, in some ways, once Ethereum came to prominence, Bitcoin, a lot of people in blockchain and crypto kind of were like, well, that's old news. That's that's bags of gold. And right now we're not doing, but we're making things out of silver and we're able to, it's much more malleable. And so I really like that now there's an opportunity to create an NFT like asset on the Bitcoin blockchain because it elevates Bitcoin back to, this is the original blockchain, but it has use case scenarios. It has the ability for people to create on it. And so that's exciting. That's why these 3 posters, I think, will be really a collectible years from now because they'll be able to say, yeah, I got this first thing. And it's the first by a comedian. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about ordinals. And it's just such a new space that we're kind of figuring out. And because it's hard to get Bitcoiners, and especially Bitcoin maxis, to part with their Bitcoin because everybody buys, hodls, and doesn't sell. But I think you're going to find these things to be valuable enough that you can sell them for more Bitcoin. So we can look at it that way down the road.
TJ, congratulations on the launch. I will
Yeah.
be following along. I wish you the most success and I can't wait to see what you do next. Thanks so much for joining the show.
Jen, thank you so much. I love that it's a double end, Jen. And you asked me earlier what I just remembered what my favorite interview of yours was. And it's this one. Thank you.
I love that.